Following her childhood sweetheart's death, my wife abruptly requested a divorce. In the strictest confidence, Pablo's child is too young, and there isn't a woman around to help without a mother, she remarked. The clutter in the house, I can't. Simply ignore it and take a seat back. I refrained from arguing with her. Calmly, I nodded. Because in my former life, I had declined. I had even visited her place of employment to inform them of the precarious state of their marriage. Pablo, however, never made it back and killed himself by swallowing pesticide with his child. Jenny has always resented me for that, sending false information all over the place about me being abusive and my family bullying her. She even reported me to the authorities at my place of employment. Denying me a promising future, my mother purposefully ruined our family dinner and killed everyone on her birthday. I made the decision to let go after being reborn and reopening my eyes. However, why is she kneeling now? Chapter 1. This report, you're signing it, whether you like it or not, begs me to return. Jenny yelled angrily, as though she was worried that I would hold on to her and not let go. Looking, the village counselor scowled. Orson, you reprimanded me at our divorce application and said, "What kind of husband are you? You understand?" "How difficult life is," I responded. She insisted on the divorce to a divorced woman in the village. The counselor was taken aback. He was forced to say, "Come pick up your divorce," after seeing that Jenny was being serious and not just acting. Off. Certificate upon approval. It was only at that moment that Jenny's face broke into a satisfied smile. It was oppressively humid, and as soon as we went outdoors, a torrential downpour poured from the gloomy southern sky. Jenny paused, cocked her head in my direction, and continued, "Orson, this is just a strategic divorce with a troubled expression. I'll return and remarry you after things with Pablo are under control. After that, we may all go back to the city." She talked about Pablo's difficulties and expressed her gratitude for my kindness and compassion. Her soft voice concealed a clean, sharp dagger, cutting without spilling blood. Additionally, she added, "For the time being, let's keep our divorce a secret. The locals love to chatter, you know." I interrupted her, "Jenny Lynn, do you have anything more to say to me now that I've called her by name?" She stopped smiling. "Even if this is only a temporary divorce, you're still being quite needy. When Pablo's circumstances improve, we'll reconcile." She never gave much thought to the rumors in the town, to be honest. It was my background that she truly appreciated. However, my parents denigrated her, claiming she was short-sighted and unfit for a prideful person like me. My old life's resentment flooded back into my consciousness. However, it hadn't quite reached its worst point this time. Perhaps that wasn't such a horrible thing if we could conclude things with some dignity. Seeing that I didn't dispute, Jenny grinned and took out the umbrella, saying, "I must go see Pablo. You go home by yourself." Without turning around, she swiftly left after taking the umbrella I had purchased for her, and raindrops saturated my garments. After flicking off the umbrella's edge, I took a medical slip out of my pocket and shivered. It was the pregnancy report for Jenny. Chapter 2. This pregnancy was the reason I insisted on remaining married to her in my previous existence. Ultimately, additionally, the child did not survive. Jenny accused me of causing the murders of Pablo and his child. After the rain stopped, I went back to the village. All of the neighbors looked at me with a mixture of scorn and sympathy. That city guy theft, just another disguised peasant. Jenny was such a waste of flour caught in a heap of excrement. Indeed, he is a beast. He would have already been shot and killed if Jenny hadn't sworn allegiance to him. My chest tightened as whispers and gossip buzzed incessantly in my ears. I didn't know the origin of these rumors, falsifying the facts, turning black and white. I watched as the pregnancy report turned to pulp as I dropped it into a basin of water. I gave up everything for her the last time, yet I was still unable to preserve the baby. Now that I think about it, all the indications were there. Once a woman has a child, she used to say, that's it, can quickly view your entire life. You're never going to return to the city. I gave her one last opportunity today. She let it go. It got dark. She never returned home. I heard Jenny's voice outside at around midnight, giggling. Pablo, I appreciate you walking me home. Return safely a little later. When she saw me on the couch, she froze and used her key too. Opened the door. Her smile was gone in an instant. Darkened face with a tone full of chilly sarcasm, she replied, "What are you still doing here? We're divorced, what? You still believe you can keep an eye on me all the time?" That was back when she had to go across the fields after work. I used to ride my bike to take her up out of concern for her safety. She described me as needy. Claimed that I was pitiful for focusing on just one woman. She didn't even try to hide. Her disdain, after being divorced, glanced at this woman once again. After being reborn into this existence, yet I felt nothing. People are alleging that I forced you into marriage by using my status as an urban elite. So I asked quietly, "However, didn't you ask me? Didn't you accept it yourself?" Her eyes flitted, and she spoke louder. "What other people say doesn't matter to me. They're condemning me, not you." Observing her response at last, I got it. She was the one who propagated all of the pre-wedding rumors. In a previous life, she deceived me into thinking village females were straightforward and honest. Even among the masses, it turns out there are people who plot. I made the mistake of saving you from falling into the ocean. You pleaded with me to marry you, and I did. I also made that error. You now want a divorce, and I'm giving it to you. Is that also my error? Jenny's face became white. Do you truly have nothing further to say to me? Her voice rose abruptly. People gossiped because you kissed me and damaged my reputation, even though I never pleaded with you to save me. You believed that I wanted to wed you, but I would have married Pablo if you hadn't damaged my reputation.
Yes.
She gave me a hateful stare and said you took advantage of me. I had no choice but to marry you. Who were you to judge me? I assumed that you were a city man and that a better life would follow a marriage with you. But you're worthless in the fields, and your family doesn't even give a damn about you. She spit venom like it was natural urine. Just a damn loser, always starving. Chapter 3. Back then, when Pablo wanted to end our relationship, "You couldn't handle it and jumped into the river," I said, trembling with rage. "You were saved by me? I gave you CPR, but you spread false information about me attacking you. You forced me to marry you, I did, and now you're demanding a divorce, and I've agreed. I told her to calm down, but you're still out there, disparaging me." She had issues with Pablo and made me marry her in order to agitate him. However, Pablo had already sent out the wedding invites. She was furious and didn't hesitate to. She rushed to me and begged me to marry her, saying, "I'll treat you well if you marry me, Orson. My life will be ruined if I don't marry you. And I'll always be referred to as a used shoe. Please save me. I'll die without you. Please take me out of here." I went cold. As a young person with intelligence, excellent performance, and, above all, delaying marriage were necessary for returning to the city. It would be like putting my roots in the nation if I married her. Thus my father was adamantly against our union. She claimed at the time that she wouldn't mind the difficulties because she thought we could live comfortably together if she stayed with me. I forfeited my opportunity to go back to the city and attend the Industrial and Agricultural University for her. After being married, she found out that Pablo was widowed and that moving back to the city was still a long-term goal. Her repressed feelings suddenly surfaced. She appeared uncomfortable when she heard my question, but she was only momentarily uncomfortable. "Have I taken advantage of you?" she sneered. "I didn't ask you to save me, therefore, I'm in the wrong now. If you hadn't gotten involved, I would still be clean. I believed you could take me back to the city, but now look at you. Why would I marry you? Who wanted to marry you? Marrying you was the worst decision of my life. I have no power, no talent, and I can't even get enough work points." I watched her spew vitriol, and a lousy scholar is worthless. For the first time, I couldn't help but twist my lips when I saw her for who she really was. You're correct. I am solely to blame. I was so stupid that I thought she was innocent. Nice girl. I gave up my opportunity to return to the city and study enough. You're a grown man. You're being so petty, Jenny replied icily. Pablo and his daughter will move in tomorrow. Make it easier for me to look after them? You ought to move away. She then turned and entered the bedroom. She let me know she didn't like me by slamming the door. Chapter 4. The following day, all I owned and she threw away the bedrooms. You can embrace your books as your wife. Big deal, she said with a clap of her hands. Even though you can read, you are still powerless, just like us who labor in the fields. Useless. A loud tap on the door interrupted my packing. Soon as I opened it, a young girl brandished a slingshot at me and yelled, "Who are you? How did you enter my house?" She spoke with such assurance that I stood motionless at the door. "Stop being impolite, Cecilia." Pablo, who was carrying her bags, appeared robust and obviously capable of working hard. Pablo grabbed the girl's braid when he saw me. The girl is only a child and lost her mother, does not comprehend. Don't be upset about it. Although his statements included an underlying provocation, he appeared to be expressing regret for his daughter. You're still here after divorcing Jenny, correct? You'll soon learn that Jenny and I intend to tie the knot. Everyone will find it strange if you stay here, don't you think? Shortly after his wife passed away, he began considering getting married again. I couldn't resist sneering. It makes sense. You're hurrying to locate your daughter a stepmother because she lacks morality and is now motherless. You sobbed and expressed your love for your late wife at the funeral last month. Do you not find that absurd? Pablo balled up his fists. Cecilia fired the slingshot at me at that very moment. Don't disparage my father. He is the greatest father in the world, in contrast to you, who only survives on women. Useless. She gave me a tongue out before her eyes brightened up. I followed Mom's eyes and noticed Jenny, bringing a bunch of veggies over. Cecilia's face brightened with happiness. She frowned when she saw me. Evidently taken aback by my continued presence, she waved us in fast. Stop standing at the door. You too. Come on in. This will be our new home from now on. Pack your bags and I'll prepare dinner for you, Pablo said. Isn't it a little odd that Orson is still here? With a troubled expression. Aren't you leaving yet? This scene isn't good for either of us. Do you have no shame? Jenny yelled. I gazed at her without a facial emotion. Her eyes glowed with shame as she approached me and stomped heavily on my foot. Will you wake up? I gasped in anguish. Had on high heels. The absurd aspect, I had previously purchased those heels for her in a department store before to our marriage. The owners of the sneakers had not changed. However, the shoes owner had a new husband. Chapter 5. Pablo hurried to entice Jenny to join him, and they nearly kissed. It was such an intimate and familiar movement. Jenny was shocked when she glanced. At his palm, you're hurt. She didn't give a damn about me. I put a lot of effort into acclimating to farm labor even after we were married, always getting pummeled and damaged. I put my all into getting an additional work point so I could buy steak for her. But my skills were limited, and I wasn't strong enough. I watched her now as she escorted Pablo and Cecilia inside. I could still hear their quiet murmurs after she shut the door. Outside the courtyard were the inquisitive locals, chatting and eating cucumbers. Tisk Tsk Lin, the young scholar, I've heard that you and Jenny got divorced. What type of man are you to allow a widower to take your wife with a loud clang? I will now be protecting Jenny. Pablo opened the door, stepped out, and proudly flexed his biceps. Jenny gazed at him admiringly, saying, No one better gossip or I won't spare you with my fists. When a villager inquired about Lin, the bright young man, Jenny's expression soured and she said, He is not worthy of being my husband. I got a divorce from him. From now on, roads are roads, bridges are bridges, and everything is shut off. No longer connected, the villagers whistled as they heard their sincere confessions. Their eyes were filled with nothing but derision and sarcasm. I couldn't help but think of our wedding meal at that precise moment. Hubby, I don't mind that you're not strong, and you shouldn't mind that I'm not cultured, she added with a bashful smile. One day, as long as we put in the necessary effort, we will lead happy lives. Even though we are aware that marrying her would require being impoverished and confined to this culturally desolate rural area, her assurances had now turned into the world's most ironic joke, and yet I thought they were real. How ridiculous. How ironic, how pitiful. Chapter 6. I cuddled up reading a book in the village dormitory when I got a call at the health clinic from a friend. Jenny was having an abortion when she visited the clinic. In my past life, she had been heartbroken by Pablo's suicide and the unintentional miscarriage of their child. I had no idea what she would do with the unborn child this time. I had discreetly inquired with my pal at the clinic to let me know of any developments. Naturally, Jenny had no intention of keeping this child. I had attempted to keep her in my previous life by bearing her a child, but it had only resulted in disaster and a broken family. How could she possibly let an unborn kid interfere with her quest for love this time? The doctor inquired, "Why are you performing the procedure by yourself? Where is the child's father?" "I can't afford to raise the child because I'm divorced." Through her tears, Jenny stated that having it would only lead to sorrow. Despite the sadness in her remarks, they were all lies. Adding to her rage, the nurse said he doesn't give a damn about the woman's life or death. All he does is remove his pants. I curse him. May he never be buried by his son. I balled my fists and prepared to go. However, Pablo suddenly showed up with Cecilia's hand in his. He hurried over to Jenny's side and asked, "Why are you being so stupid? I'm strong enough to raise your child." Jenny responded, "No, I don't want that soft-boiled man's child," in a raspy voice as her eyes turned crimson. She touched Cecilia's cheek, saying, "I don't want to get tangled up with him anymore. In addition to the pain of childbirth is too great. Hearing that, I'm okay with simply being with you and having Cecilia." My hands fell helplessly as my rage subsided. What joy could an unborn infant experience? This was the best result. If it was already hated by its own mother, without turning around, I went out. Everything started to come back to life as the spring breeze passed through. However, my heart, it was January and still frozen. Upon returning to Linja village, I experienced no attachment. When the locals were chatting, I chose to ignore them and concentrate on my work. I was called a weak man, a cuckold, and a useless idiot by the majority of them. I told the counselor that the divorce papers had been approved when she arrived. Jenny and UI placed the divorce document away and remarked indifferently, "What's going on?" I heard that she was already organizing a wedding with Pablo. Is unrelated to me. Is she aware that you have been given permission to go back to the city and study at the university? I said, it has nothing to do with her. She doesn't have to be aware. If she knew you'd been approved to return, the counselor moaned. You may not have been divorced by her. I said, you're thinking too much. For her, I could remain in the nation. However, she turned me down since I couldn't take her. To the city, one error resulted in another. Chapter 7. After sorting through my papers, I bought my rail ticket and took my letter of introduction. Getting ready to head back to the city, I sat near the window of the bus and looked out at the fields in the country where I had spent the previous 6 years. With a tremendous roar, the bus engine sprang to life. My heart began to slowly settle down amid the commotion. But all of a sudden, I heard a shout I recognized. The bus is being pursued by a woman in a wedding gown on a bicycle. Isn't it interesting that as I turned around, Jenny had 2 braids flying behind her in a floral dress? Frantically pedaling a bicycle to catch up. She yelled, "Don't go worsen." I looked at her icily and then averted my gaze. Do you know this bride? The guy seated next to me inquired. No, I said coolly. The familiar air hit me when I returned. To a city, I had a complicated sense of nostalgia when I returned as an adult after leaving as a young man. Once, when I was young and enthusiastic, I was sent to the country to work in agriculture, only to encounter years of contempt. I obstinately maintained my pride despite my parents' best efforts to persuade me to return. I thought we would live in peace when I took Jenny back to the city in my former life. I made amends with my mom. However, I had no idea that it would end up being her death sentence. I feel guilty just thinking about how the lady I married murdered my own mother. I nearly ran home with this thought in mind. The walls of the communal apartment where I lived faded and worn by the passage of time. Orson, from the side came an old voice. My mother was slumped over, staring at me in shock as I suddenly turned around. Her pupils trembled. My mother had lost a lot of weight, and her hair had become gray. I was unable to conceal the feelings that were building inside of me. I hurried to give her a firm embrace. Men don't cry very much, but that's because they haven't experienced real pain yet, I muttered, Mom, with red eyes and a raspy voice. I'm sorry I was unfilial. I stayed disobedient for too long and returned too late, causing my mother to jump back in horror. Who caused you to suffer, son? Tell me and I'll hold them accountable. Who would dare to abuse my son? My father stepped out of the living room. Shocked by her voice, which was still as forceful as ever, said, "You brat, you finally decided to come back, and you've upset your mother so much," as he opened the door. My mother protected me behind her and gave my father a harsh frown. When she heard this, "If you annoy Orson once more after saying, 'I'll throw you out of the house,'" she dragged me inside and told my father to go buy vegetables and advising him to get additional meat. Nothing had changed in my room after 4 years gone. It remained tidy and spotless. My father had big hopes for me in my former life, accusing me of lacking sufficient masculinity. Despite my academic success, Dad believed I could have performed better and hardly ever complimented me.
Oh.
My father repressed me frequently as I grew up in this environment.
Oh.
I used to be conceited and full of animosity toward him, and then he died before I could go see him. I now realize my father's genuine intentions after living 2 lives. They cherished me. However, their love was too conventional and inflexible. I learned how to be a person from years of experience. I've only just realized that those who adore your family is the most important thing in the world. Chapter 8. My parents prepared a large spread of my favorite foods for supper. Look at you. You've lost weight and become darker. Did you return by yourself? My mother questioned thoughtfully. Their skepticism was evident to me. My parents dropped their chopsticks. As they heard me say calmly, "I divorced her," and their eyes were big as they gazed at me. I told them what had happened, and they listened. The table was banged by my father. My mother's voice was stern and low. "What do you just put up with it like that? Sit down," she said. "Keep your temper in check." My father's lips quivered with rage as he glared at me and then at my mother. "Are you really going to let this go? How could my mother have broken her chopsticks in 2? Who would dare to mislead my beloved son?" I had assumed I could overlook it after seeing my parents again, but those blatant dogs need to learn a lesson. My long-suppressed wrath flared back. When I brought her back to the city in my former life, I assumed she would get married. I had no idea that she had poisoned and murdered my whole family for another man. My mother had pleaded with Jenny to spare me, I recalled. Jenny scoffed at me if I spared him. "He will simply murder Pablo. He is my family and always looked out for me when I was a child. Therefore, you should send him to go with him." My eyes grew gloomy. After my mother persuades them, they will regret provoking me once more. I went back to the University of Agriculture and Industry. When I returned to college, I noticed the vibrant young kids. I became aware that I was just in my early 20s. I was at the teaching office when I suddenly ran into Jenny. She had her hair in 2 big braids and was wearing a floral dress. Her expression brightened as she spotted me. She hurried to me with excitement. "Why didn't you inform me, hubby, that I had come especially to locate you when you got back to the city?" I scowled and gave the woman in front of me a chilly glance. "Do I look good?" "We pretended to divorce, so," she pouted. "You might return to the city?" "I fulfilled my obligation." "Bring me to your parents' house." Many of my hometown delicacies were brought to them. I couldn't have predicted how quickly she would change her face. "Isn't your husband Pablo?" I sneered. Chapter 9. Jenny hesitated, then reached for my hand. I steered icily away from her. "How could that be?" "My husband is just you," Jenny pouted. "I am just buddies with Pablo. Come on, I'm aware of your jealousy." "Excuse me, but I glanced at the people observing us from the side." Jenny looked at me, in shock. Could someone help phone security and get these people out of here? As her eyes briefly started to well up with tears. "I'm pregnant, husband. You can't leave me like this." When she brought up the child, the wrath I had been holding inside erupted. "A youngster, didn't you force Pablo to go with you to end it?" "Month ago." Jenny's face went completely white. Her body shook and her eyes grew wide. "How do you know that you looked into me?" "Please allow me to explain, Orson." The child's face was disgusting to look at because of her hypocrisy. Jenny was trembling violently, so I sneered, "I have my reasons. Please let me explain. I already inquired if you had anything else to tell me. You kept quiet and didn't let me know when you were expecting. Now that the child is gone, you..." lie and deceive me. You had the child aborted and didn't tell me? How low can you get, Jenny? Jenny bit her lip and shook her head, saying, I didn't know you could go back to the city. We can't afford to raise a child in the country, so I hid it from you. Isn't it because you're interested? And I scoffed. Exactly, since Pablo didn't want his child to desire to be Cecilia's mother. You are not worthy of being the mother of my child. Shortly after the arrival of school security prepared to take Jenny away from the school, I collected myself and went to class. But Jenny persevered. She discovered my residence. Upon arriving home, I witnessed my mother using a broom to chase her out of the house. All of the regional specialties Jenny had brought from the countryside had been flung onto the floor by her. My mother gave her a harsh glare. Chapter 10. Jenny's face was covered with tea. Who is this insane woman trying to do to my son? Get out of here. But she remained calm. Rather, she grinned without guilt. Pablo, my mother-in-law, and I have been close friends since we were young. I felt sad for the child because he was going through a difficult moment, so I offered to help. Orson is the only person in my heart. Actually, Pablo and I are clean. Orson is the only one feeling envious. Could you please speak for me? She even broke down in tears as she talked to all. Make herself seem more pathetic. My mom had encountered a variety of crafty women. People were constantly attempting to connect with us, particularly because of my father's position. My son was too naive once. You deceived him because you don't want my son, and you pursued a widower? You have the courage to do it, but lack the courage to own it. Seeing my mother defend me in this way makes me sick. Leave and never try to approach my son again. My nose tasted a little foul, and my heart warmed. I used to simply be concerned about learning and didn't comprehend the intricacies of human nature, and I had a bad relationship with my family. Only after I got back to the city and had recently started to repair the damage caused by Jenny's obsession, which resulted in a fractured family. Jenny hurried up to me after spotting me in the crowd. We're just acting as though we're divorced, Orson, so you need to make amends with your parents. We're still in our youth. You're still able to have kids. In addition, you will be embarrassed that I am your wife if our problems are revealed. I heard you're having a wedding feast with your husband Pablo in the village, I sneered. Jenny's face went white. Her eyes were filled with tears. We didn't register for that ordinary supper, but I heard you divorced me so you might return to the city. I am aware that you had no intention of divorcing me. That's why I acted like I was with Pablo. I'll come speak with you when you return to the city. We'll reapply for a marriage certificate. I am genuinely doing this for you. She clutched for my arm tremblingly as she talked, saying, You're not adjusting well to the countryside. However, my mother spat out, Who is this crazy woman lying? Threw her teeth and swung the broom at her. When my mother reprimanded her, she pulled me inside, saying, My son isn't some low-life trash like you to be messed with. Jenny continued to attempt to follow, but her face altered as she saw my father come out brandishing a rifle, and she ran away in fear. Back home, my parents stopped talking about the past, because now what was important was the present and future of our family. Jenny and everything else had lost its significance. Chapter 11. Jenny was astounded to see me again in the city because our rural existence was so dissimilar. With my stellar academic record, I had a promising future. Every day she came to school to block me. She went about declaring that she was my wife and saying that she had endured a lot of hardships in the country while we were married. She even reached out to my classmates in an attempt to persuade me. I quickly gained recognition from my peers as a man with dubious moral character. I ignored her several strategies in favor of concentrating solely on my schoolwork. Pablo eventually lost control and ran to locate me at a city university. You're a university student now, he said. You're going to desert your poor country. Wife, he said, intending to inform everyone. It's world that I was a cold-hearted individual. Jenny is a decent girl who adores you. Returning to the countryside, she was always quite kind to you. However, you abandon her as soon as you arrive in the city. You're not worthy of her. Cecilia raced out and kicked me with her tiny legs, and every syllable was delivered with passionate outrage. Even though the young girl lacked power, don't. Take her away. You're tormenting my mom, bad uncle. Her ferocious kicks are still painful. Pablo's brief smile let me know that this father-daughter alliance was a formidable one. Pablo reprimanded his daughter for being impolite and then turned to face me with regret, making a variety of excuses. The nearby students swiftly put together a revised version of the rumors after he presented his dramatic scene. Who would have guessed that Orson would leave his impoverished country wife and return to the city? How pathetic that his wife is being exploited by the city people because she is too generous. My cheeks became green with rage as I heard various condemnations coming from all sides. Hearing these rumors, they were too familiar to me. Drama had been taken into the city and was being reenacted. Jenny's voice came from the throng just as I was going to yell. "What are you doing here, Pablo?" The crowd dispersed. Jenny ran in front of Pablo, scolding him aggressively while wiping the perspiration from her face. "I am going to remarry Orson." "What right do you have to come to him? You and your daughter should remain out of this. You and I are just friends." Pablo's lips quivered as he gazed at her in disbelief. "We doesn't want you, Jenny. Return with me." "We'll get along great together, Pablo," Jenny shouted, interrupting him. She gave him a disgusted expression. "Yes, I did utilize you. Orson's relationship with his parents deteriorated as a result of me. Orson doesn't belong in the country, I know that, so I got you to help me." Then she turned to look at me lovingly. She talked about the difficulties she had faced, wishing for my parents' reconciliation. She was so good at spinning lies that it seemed like she was telling the truth. She had even persuaded herself. I was so horrified at the time that I felt practically nauseous. To put it simply, Jenny was a smart egoist who genuinely wanted everything. She was in love with Pablo, but she also wanted the material advantages that I could offer. She was unaware that her ambition was not matched by her ability. She would ultimately lose everything she desired. Chapter 12. Security stopped Pablo before he could strike me. On campus, things had gotten out of hand. Teaching office head showed up to ask how things were doing. "What is happening here? What is going on?" Cecilia moved up and embraced Jenny's legs before anyone could say anything, calling out, "Mommy." "This bad man is trying to take my mommy," she said to the teaching leader, pointing at me. Pablo said, "Leader, you need to look into this. This college student is really uncivilized. Leaving his poor wife behind, and he's supposed to be smart. Is it appropriate that anyone may attend college these days?" As though he were the most honest man in the world, he talked with such righteous wrath. Jenny's face went white with rage. "Pablo, don't get involved. It's between Orson and me," I remarked icily, seeing this dramatic scenario with contempt. "I saved you then." "Jenny, but you ended up with Pablo because of him. When Pablo lost his wife, you threw a party and pretended to be a stepmother because you couldn't wait to divorce me. Now, I truly hope you both. I wish you well in your romantic endeavors, but please don't ruin my view with a trashy man and a vile woman. An ideal fit." The audience began muttering as soon as I was done, half believing what I had said. "Orson, you're bullying a woman," Pablo replied quickly as Jenny's face went pale. "I heard that the wedding feast was held, so I said, 'What kind of man are you?' You came to find me, didn't you? You provided the funding for the village. Despite the fact that you have previously divorced me, you are now denouncing me. That is so hypocritical." Pablo's body tensed, and his face became unnatural. He had obviously come with Jenny in tow. Jenny attempted to clarify that things weren't like that by pushing his hand away. I had no desire to waste time on Jenny. "You'll lose your job if you don't return to living an honest life." At this point, I understood that Jenny's work and that my parents had organized the village. I had a great sense of self-respect and felt proud. Her work was covertly arranged by my parents, yet dared not tell me. Jenny had come looking for me after I divorced her because she had lost her promotion. "Orson, please trust me when I explain that Pablo and I are just friends and have nothing in common." With tears in her eyes, she took hold of my hand and apologized, then told Pablo to leave. Those around me gave me pitying looks. Following such a spectacle, everyone realized that I had been exploited. After leaving me for a widower, my wife hurried to take on the role of stepmother to someone else. I will give in once if someone provokes me. If they attack me once again, facing these two callous, disloyal, and ungrateful scoundrels, I'll tear them off at the root. Chapter 13. Should I hesitate any longer? My rage was still roiling when I got back to the dorm. Taking up my pen, I hurriedly composed a letter of grievance. I would assist them if they were shameless. No shame after writing the letter. I forwarded it to Pablo's production team and the town committee. I picked the quickest postal service, and sure enough, Pablo and Jenny disappeared from my view in a matter of days. They never again showed up in front of me. A feeling of relaxation came over me instantly. After the garbage in my life was removed, sunshine seemed to fill the globe. A lovely supper welcomed me when I returned home for the weekend. My mother was eager to tell me the good news. Jenny lost her job because of Pablo's irresponsible behavior, sweet-talking young. Girlsy received harsh criticism after it was discovered that he had been making advances at other people's spouses. Moreover, it happened more than once or twice. Pablo's, depending on his physical prowess and his limited role within the production crew, had misused his authority. My mother told the story with style, using her gossiping abilities. It kept coming to me that my mother's birthday was today. Our family had experienced such adversity during this time last year. I gave her a well-thought-out gift this year, a radio so she could tune into the shows. Regarding Jenny, she was no longer associated with me. She was still unable to alter her tendency to rely on men when I heard from her again. She married a man considerably older than herself in order to maintain her career, but things weren't going well in her life. Chapter 14. I concentrated on my university coursework and achieved great results upon graduation, just in time to ride the economic reform wave. I took advantage of the chance to launch a company, and I had a successful career. I eventually found a partner that held similar ideals to mine. She was aware of my past. We entered into marriage together, living a contented and joyful life. Regarding Jenny, I had completely forgotten about her. All scars are genuinely healed by time. Till I had a business trip 7 years later to stay at the greatest hotel in Nan County. I was abruptly stopped by a beggar who was staring up at me while holding a shattered dish. She dropped the broken bowl and lunged at me as her pupils quiver, and she said, "Husband, husband, I'm kneeling on the ground. You finally found me. Please pardon me for my mistake." The business partner threw her out and summoned security to take her away. My heart was in turmoil. However, I maintained a neutral expression while listening to Jenny's call to me. "Was mistaken, husband. I really apologize. Should not have divorced you or aborted your child. Revenge. I got the whole story from my business partner, and it's all retaliation. Ha ha ha." Jenny, she married a man 20 years her senior in an attempt to gain prestige. The vice director of the factory was that man. Regrettably, the factory's operations collapsed and ultimately closed as a result of the enterprise reform. Desperate. The vice factory director vented his rage on Jenny, who was frequently referring to her as a used shoe and mistreating her. She eventually became almost mad and ended up as a beggar. She would yell "husband" whenever she saw a man. She repeatedly apologized and said she was mistaken. My heart did stir a little when I saw her in such a miserable state. However, it was merely a small one. Pablo, on the other hand, was still Pablo. Following a dismissal, he traveled to the city in the south to work. He was astute enough to earn some cash before he began bragging in his hometown. However, he became connected with the factory director's mistress behind the scenes, and when it was found, he was beaten almost to death. Later, I came upon his name in the papers. He used a beer bottle to assassinate the manufacturing director as payback. He was found guilty and given the death penalty. Karma is real, as one might anticipate. Those who are bad get what they deserve. I was now carrying our daughter back to my parents' house while clutching my wife's hand. As soon as we opened the door, my parents smiled as they welcomed us. When I was younger, I was unaware of the actual worth of family harmony leads to prosperity. After experiencing everything, I came to a stunning realization. There's no need to look far for happiness, because it's always right here. The agony is long gone. After so much experience, all that remains is the capacity to recognize life's subtle beauties. The most crucial aspect of existence is to age in peace with your loved ones, knowing that I didn't squander life's wonderful moments.